obvious example is obviously men can have babies, stuff like that. That's just these people who they seem to want to, the social justice warriors, they always seem to want to like find a new group to champion, and they do it so ass backwards. You know, the homeless. Let's keep them on the street. No, that's the opposite of compassion. Let's get them off the street.
Is wokeness going too far? Even Bill Maher thinks so. Bill Maher schooling woke actors has the left in a frenzy. But as a Republican, I'm standing with him. We need to call out this nonsense before it destroys common sense. Let's dive into it. Right here on Black Coffee.
Woke, you have to like buddy up to this word. No, because it comes up too much. So it started out.
Bullshit word.
Well, it became bullshit.
Yeah.
It became an eye roll for a very good reason.
Yeah.
Because it refers to everything where they embrace nonsense. You know, obvious example is obviously men can have babies, stuff like that. That's just these people who they seem to want to, the social justice warriors, they always seem to want to like find a new group to champion, and they do it so ass backwards. You know, the homeless. Let's keep them on the street. No, that's the opposite of compassion. Let's get them off the street. In Portland now, you can be fined. You're fined if you just ask them to move. And homeless people on the street is not good for the people or the homeless. So it's that kind of stuff that makes you roll your eyes and goes, you people are fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Or
I totally agree.
I may have told this story, but
I remember the 5-cent Coke again.
Right.
Didn't used to be this way, you know?
I think I told this, but I'm going to tell it again because it blows my mind. Mr. Beast, he's a YouTube star. You don't have to know who he is.
Yeah.
He makes these videos that get zillions of views, and then he uses the money to do things like and he likes to put in the title because it gets crazy viral, like helped 1,000 people overcome disability. And he did. I forget what the disability was. And then he got attacked. And like papers that we could, or websites and papers that we consider like normal and like respected, said things like, what needs curing is society's view of the disabled. And Mr. Beast thinks that disability is something that needs to be solved.
All right, surprisingly, I found myself nodding along while listening to some recent clips of Bill Maher. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Bill Maher, isn't he that liberal comedian guy? And yeah, generally speaking, he leans that way. But every now and then, even folks on the other side of the aisle hit the nail on the head. And in this case, it's about this whole woke phenomenon. Look, I'm a conservative Republican. My values are pretty clear. I believe in personal responsibility, limited government, strong families, and a robust free market. But lately, what we're seeing in the name of social justice, this hypersensitivity that Maher touched on, it's not just a difference of opinion. It's bordering on the absurd. This idea that we have to bend over backwards to avoid even the slightest hint of discomfort to the point where we ignore basic realities is frankly dangerous. Maher and his guests were talking about examples like the idea that men can have babies.
Any laugh the good-looking guy gets is gravy, first of all.
You are so knowledgeable. You are so good at this stuff. And yet you give everybody a lot of room for their opinion.
Yes.
And you laugh at this and that.
Absolutely.
That's why you should be president.
Here's another woke thing for you, Mr. Actor Man.
Okay.
They don't have a sense of humor. Because humor might hurt someone's feelings, and feelings are the most important thing. They're more important than free speech. They're more important than anything. It's that nobody ever feel a moment of discomfort or pain.
Right.
And what they do is they operate in bad faith. I don't know if you've seen this story, but there's a country star named Jason Aldean.
Don't know him.
Okay. He put out a record called Try That in a Small Town. And I was, again, one of those things, the polarization of this country. I read the things that the righties said about it. I read the thing that the lefties said about it. To the left, this was like, he's this horrible racist because he's a country guy. And he shot the video at a courthouse steps where someone was lynched 100 years earlier. So it was about lynchings. And basically, he's a redneck guy. and I'm getting this now from Coleman Hughes, who's black, brilliant writer, if you're not up on him.
No.
Young, black, and brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And I believed Coleman Hughes. He said, this is a smear thing that they do. Because, and again, Jason Aldean, I don't know who the fuck this is. I probably would never be interested in his music. But he didn't pick that location. They know this. This is what I mean by bad faith. It's like, yeah, I know that, but I also can get him on this. If I put it in the article that the thing was shot at and of course, it turns out other movies have been shot there. Like Hannah Montana was shot there.
Now, as a matter of biological fact, that's just not true. And it's not hateful to state a biological reality. It's actually confusing and harmful, especially to young people who are trying to understand the world around them. We're creating a situation where feelings are prioritized over facts, and that's a slippery slope. What really resonated with me was Maher's point about the social justice warriors constantly looking for a new group to champion, often in a way that is completely counterproductive. The example he used about the homeless is spot on. In places like Portland, you can actually get fined for asking a homeless person to move. Now, who does that help? Not the business owners trying to keep their storefront safe and clean, and certainly not the homeless individuals who need real support and resources to get back on their feet. True compassion isn't about enabling harmful situations. It's about finding real solutions, even if those solutions require some tough love and acknowledging uncomfortable truths. And this ties into another aspect of this wokeness that Maher highlighted: the attack on common sense and the refusal to acknowledge problems. Take the example of Mr. Beast, a guy who uses his platform and wealth to do genuinely good things, like helping people with disabilities. Instead of celebrating that, he got attacked by certain corners for supposedly suggesting that disability is something that needs to be solved. Well, newsflash. A disability is by definition an inability to do something. Wanting to help someone overcome a disability isn't ableist. It's humane. This radical acceptance to the point of denying reality is not progress. It's intellectual dishonesty.
Point of view that it's not my world, being a small town person who's saying, oh, if you try to take my guns, try that in a small town. Okay, but we have to get past this thing where you are just evil if you're not like me. Half the country is not like you.
Right.
They're just not. And they're not going to change, and they're not going to self-deport, and you're not going to bully them into being you. You just have to have a level of acceptance.
But it seems to me that a lot of people have gotten real dumb real quick in the last 10 years.
Oh,
why, before, you visit the South and you go, and it is what it is. And I love tradition. I love little towns, and I love people that speak a little different colloquialism than other people.
Barns.
Yeah, but
lighthouses.
Yeah.
Thomas Kincaid paintings.
What's happened to this, There's strip malls in every one of those little towns. There's opinions that are not fair. They're not fair. It's really, really changed, and there's more hatred available around.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything goes from 0 to I will kill you in 10 seconds.
And the minute I meet somebody, I always feel like, gee, I like you. Now show me why I don't.
From a conservative standpoint, this whole woke ideology often feels like an attack on the very foundations of our society. It pushes for a victim mentality where every perceived slight is amplified and individual responsibility takes a back seat. Instead of empowering people to overcome challenges, it often seems to foster a sense of perpetual grievance. Look at the Jason Aldean "try that" in a small town controversy that was mentioned. The immediate rush to label him a racist because he's a country artist who filmed a video at a courthouse where, by the way, other productions have also filmed, is a prime example of this bad faith approach. It's about finding offense where it might not genuinely exist. About immediately assigning the worst possible intentions. As Maher correctly pointed out, a lot of folks in this country, in small towns, have a different perspective. They value their traditions and their way of life, and that doesn't automatically make them bigots. This constant polarization and the inability to see any nuance is tearing our country apart. The intolerance inherent in this woke movement is also deeply concerning. Maher touched on this too. The lack of a sense of humor because everything might offend someone. Free speech, a cornerstone of our republic, is increasingly being challenged by the idea that no one should ever feel discomfort. But life is uncomfortable sometimes. We grow by facing challenges and engaging in robust debate, even if it ruffles some feathers. When we prioritize feelings over the free exchange of ideas, we stifle progress and create an echo chamber of self-affirmation. What Bill Maher is pointing out, and what I wholeheartedly agree with from a conservative perspective, is that this wokeness has become a radical ideology that often operates in bad faith. It's not about genuine compassion or progress. It's often about virtue signaling, gaining social currency, and shutting down dissenting opinions. It's about creating a climate of fear where people are afraid to speak their minds for fear of being labeled and cancelled. As conservatives, we believe in the power of individual agency and the importance of free and open discourse. We believe in acknowledging problems and working towards practical solutions, not in pretending they don't exist. We believe in judging people as individuals, not as members of some victimized or privileged group. This woke ideology, as Maher aptly describes, embraces nonsense. It undermines the very fabric of our society by prioritizing feelings over facts, groupthink over individual thought, and outrage over reasoned debate. It's not just a political disagreement, it's a fundamental clash of worldviews. So while I might not agree with Bill Maher on everything, on this issue of the dangers of unchecked wokeness, he's absolutely right. It's time for more common sense, more critical thinking, and a return to the basic principles of respect and honest dialogue. We need to be able to have tough conversations without immediately resorting to accusations and labels. We need to get back to a place where facts matter, where individual responsibility is valued, and where we can laugh at ourselves and with each other without fear of retribution. That's my take on it, Black Coffee Nation. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unfiltered conservative commentary. Until next time, stay caffeinated and stay informed.